Another FPL game week is about to begin. In today's video, we're going to have a look at my game week team selection. We're going to talk about how my season is going so far. We're going to talk a lot about my future transfer plans, when I'm going to be playing my wildcard. But most importantly, we're going to have a look at my game week 6 team selection, my transfers, my captaincy, and finally, my lineup. What's up everyone, FPL Harry here. Welcome back to another video. It is my game week 6 team selection. It is a Saturday lunchtime deadline, slightly different to normal, but today we're going to have a look at how I'm lining up for that week. And spoiler, I've confirmed some of my transfers going into the weekend as well. We're going to try and hit 2,000 likes on the video. Subscribe if you are new around here. The aim is to hit 100,000 subscribers this season. So if you want to help me get there, please do hit that button. But very quick review of game week 5. I don't want to dwell on it too much because it was by far the worst game week of the season so far. I scored 36 points and I moved from 218k, a start I was very happy with, to 595k. Now, a specific game week doesn't define your season, but it was a bit of a setback given how well I feel like I'd started the season and some of the decisions that I had been making. Not many returns, but my new transfer in this week, Fabian Schär, did come up with a clean sheet. However, I did take out Saliba, and of course Arsenal did get their clean sheet as well. Not a great game week, we move. So before we can actually even get to the point of discussing my transfers for next week, I need to tell you that I've already confirmed a transfer. Nicholas Jackson has left my team for Julian Alvarez. I did it on Tuesday evening after the Champions League game. After having watched him play, he is such a good player and he is on such good form at the moment. I think he will be so involved in what Manchester City do continuously. Kevin De Bruyne is not back for a while, but I'm really interested to see how Pep tries to fit them both in because I don't think he can drop Alvarez once De Bruyne comes back. I did it before the price rise on Tuesday. I did take a bit of a risk. If you haven't bought Alvarez by now, I'd wait until Saturday because we should get Manchester City team news before the FPL deadline. I've watched Chelsea as a Chelsea fan enough to see Jackson's not performing. The chances he's missing is just not worth it. The gut feel on Alvarez was too strong. I'm real fan of him and how he's performing so far this season. I didn't do it before the Jackson price drop because I did want to make sure he didn't come through the Manchester City Champions League fixture with any sort of injury. So I saved 0.2 million by doing that downgrade and I like the next couple of fixtures. I'm just really hoping, because I have gone early, that he does start against Nottingham Forest. So looking at how my team lines up now, I've got one free transfer and 2.1 million in the bank. Midfield, I'm fine with. There are some midfielders that I potentially want to go to. I've spoken quite a lot about Mo Salah, and we'll talk about him on my potential transfer plans further down the line. I don't necessarily think I'm going to sell any of my midfielders this week, and I apologise to anyone watching this video who is triggered or annoyed that I'm going to end up keeping my double Manchester United midfield for another game week, despite how poorly they're performing, but despite not getting any returns in the Champions League again. But I'm going to keep Bruno Fernandes and Marcus Rashford for their fixture away at Burnley this week. The chances are, spoiler, they'll also stay for the game week 7 fixture at home to Crystal Palace, and after that, I will look to sell them from my team. However, for my transfer plans, the players I want to bring into my team, I can't afford this week, and we'll talk about them in just a moment. And the others I don't really have a good fixture this week, like Diaby of Aston Villa. It doesn't make sense to sell Bruno Fernandes before Burnley to buy Diaby before he goes away to Chelsea, given that Aston Villa have just played a pretty tough Europa Conference League game on Thursday evening, which they did lose, and he had to come on at half-time as well. I do have another transfer. I've got 2.1 million in the bank. I'm really looking in defence at the moment. Ben Chilwell has become a real issue. We are, of course, lining up with Erling Haaland and Julian Alvarez. Alvarez coming into my team up front does mean he takes the vice-captain off Bryan Mbeumo, but I still think Bryan Mbeumo is a great pick this week as well. So the first lot of transfer plans that I could do is selling Ben Chilwell. If I'm going to make my second transfer this week, it will be selling Ben Chilwell going into game week 6. If I'm not going to do it in game week 6, I'm pretty certain I'll do it in game week 7 anyway. It's just whether I think the players I'd be bringing in this week are really worth it. The first option I have is to go and buy Sven Botman and double up on the Newcastle defence. Now, I do actually have the money in the bank to go with Kieran Trippier, but when we get onto the next slide, we'll have a look at some of the other transfers I have planned further down the line, and it doesn't allow me to do them if I do go with Kieran Trippier. So if I am going to double up on the Newcastle defence, I am going to go Botman. A lot of people in the comments have been asking about Dan Burn. The only issue with him is he has Lewis Hall. Now, I don't expect Lewis Hall to get loads of starts, but Lewis Hall is the best backup that any of that defence have. Livramento and Trippier, then you have Lascelles or coming in for any of the centre-backs. Lewis Hall compared to Burn is the closest debate that we've got. I do think Dan Burn will start the majority of games, but Botman, as we saw, has got an assist so far this season. He's also been really good for bonus points, so I would go with Botman if I was going to double up. Of course, I already own Fabian Schär in my Game Week 6 team so far. The other option I have is to keep Chilwell this week. If I'm going to make the transfer going into Game Week 6 and I make my second free transfer, it will be to Botman. Sheffield United this week is nice and the fixture run does continue. But given I have Fabian Schär, I do have the luxury potentially of holding off. It is an away fixture in Game Week 6. Now, Sheffield United have not been great, but again, it is an away fixture. We have seen Cameron Archer and some of them do quite well so far this season. I could hold on to Chilwell if I do expect him to come back into that Chelsea lineup and actually go on an Aston Villa defender in either Game Week 7 probably or Game Week 8. The big confusion for me lies around, do I expect Ben Chilwell to come back into that Chelsea lineup? The short answer is yes. The second answer, the long answer is I'm not massively confident that I think he'll come back in. I do think for a fixture like Aston Villa, the attacking style that maybe Mudryk brings that we played against Bournemouth may not be needed quite so much, and maybe a more defensive approach of Ben Chilwell playing on that left wing might be better suited for the style of fixture that we do have coming up. If I decide to wait and not do it in Game Week 6, this focus can shift a little bit away from Newcastle, who do have two really good fixtures on the horizon, but then it is West Ham away and Crystal Palace, both are two teams who are attacking quite well. I could make the move to go for one of the Aston Villa defenders. Playing at left back has been Luca Dean so far this season. He's been really good. He scored in the Europa Conference League again on Thursday evening. But Moreno does look like he's back in training. He was on the bench in that fixture. I would also be allowed to sort of pay attention to the lineup going into Game Week 6 against Chelsea. If Moreno started in that fixture, I would assume that he's going to come back to be first choice. He was so good both in our FPL teams, but generally for Aston Villa last season. If I'm unsure about exactly who's going to start at left back, I could just go and buy Matty Cash. He was on the bench with a lot of the first team options in the likes of Watkins and Diaby going into that fixture on Thursday evening and was brought on at half time to sort of try and change the game there for Aston Villa. So I do think he is in the first choice lineup for them and he has been really good going forward. So I could go to Botman this week, or I could decide to keep Chilwell for the Villa fixture and go to one of the Aston Villa defenders for Brighton at home and their nice fixture run which starts in Game Week 8. So just to talk in a little bit more detail about what those potential transfers mean going forward. So I've spoken a little bit this week about wildcarding. I spoke about it in my transfer plans video. I spoke about it in my wildcard draft video, of course, to talk about in that video, no brainer. But the transfers that I'm going to do going forward, I do plan on holding my wildcard. It's something I've toyed with a lot. A lot of seasons I've decided to hold my wildcard quite late. I do think it's possible that I go and do it again this season. I do think there's enough positives to it. And I do think I can get to a pretty strong team going into Game Week 8, 9, 10, when a lot of people are going to be playing their wildcards without deciding to do it and actually just using my free transfers and maybe a potential -4. Looking at the potential transfers I'm going to do. So right now, I think I'll keep Ben Chilwell for this week and I'll go and buy Matty Cash. That means I'll be making one free transfer going into Game Week 7. I'll roll my second free transfer going into Game Week 8. Going into Game Week 8, I will have 2 free transfers. It'll finally be time to get rid of at least one of my Manchester United options. It's also when Arsenal have a couple of difficult fixtures on the horizon. They play Manchester City, they play Chelsea, and they play Newcastle in 3 of the next 4 from Game Week 8 all the way up until Game Week 11. So my plan would be to sell Bruno Fernandes because I can keep Marcus Rashford, who looks like the main goal threat. If it switches between then, I could sell Rashford and keep Fernandes, but I do think Fernandes will be the first to go. I want to buy Son into my team for Luton, Fulham and Crystal Palace in their Game Week 8, 9, 10 fixture run, given that he's still playing up front, which I do think he will continue to do. I then will downgrade Bukayo Saka to Diaby. If I could do Saka up to Mo Salah, I would, but I need to do that downgrade, and I don't want to do it all for a -4 that week. Game Week 8, as I've spoken about with the Aston Villa guys, is when the nice fixture run does start. So Diaby in for their fixtures from Game Week 8 onwards. I think he's going to play up front. He is in the first choice, as we saw with him being benched in the Europa Conference League. And those 2 transfers free up enough money in my team to the following week to do Marcus Rashford all the way up to Mo Salah. Now, when Game Week 12 comes around, I'll be looking to buy back in an Arsenal midfielder. I realise this will be leaving me quite light on Arsenal, but I think Son, Diaby and Salah are 3 players that people are key to playing on their wild card, which is why I think I can potentially get away with not playing it with this transfer plan. So that being said, I've spoken a lot about my transfer plans. I've already confirmed my first free transfer of Julian Alvarez coming in for Jackson. Jackson may end up punishing me, but if he scores as a Chelsea fan, we might actually get some points. So it's a win-win either way for me. And I do think Julian Alvarez will start this game and should start against Wolves. But if you haven't bought Alvarez, I'd wait until Saturday when we should get some early team news. And I, of course, will be doing my deadline stream where I hopefully will be able to report on some of that Manchester City team news as well. So do tune in to that if you are making any final decisions or just want something to watch on your Saturday lunchtime. Lineup is as follows. So Pickford does start in goal, Turner on the bench. The goalkeeper rotation is going horribly. I haven't picked the right one, and actually neither of them have done very well so far this season at all. Ben Chilwell is set to start for me again this week. I am going to keep him. He does line up in defence alongside Fabian Schär, so I do still have some cover in that Newcastle defence. And Purvis Estupiñán, he has played in Europe on Thursday evening, but I'm hoping that he comes in and starts in this fixture at home to Bournemouth. My midfield 5 remains as is. I'm still pretty happy with them. Maddison and Mbeumo, Saka, I'm very happy with. The double Manchester United, as I've spoken about, I'm going to keep for the next couple of fixtures before I then move them off in about game week 8-9, when I'm not necessarily certain I'll have any returns between now and then, but they are going to keep because I don't think the options that I can go to from them are any better for the next couple of weeks. And then, of course, Alvarez, my new signing, Erling Haaland up front, Haaland captain, Alvarez vice captain. The bench, Archer is first sub, always favour the attacker. And then Kabore and Udogie. I'm going with Udogie second just for the little bit more of attacking threat and playing for a better side than, of course, Kabore does. So, going to roll my second free transfer. I think if we get news that Chilwell's not going to start going into the deadline, then I will easily sell him and probably go and buy Sven Botman into my defence. Let me know what you think. The transfer plans going forward, I am going to plan on saving my wild card. If you've just skipped to the end and have not listened to any more of the video, I do advise it because I've spoken a lot about why I bought Alvarez, potentially my transfer plans going forward over the next 4 weeks, and why it means I'm allowed to save my wildcard until later on in the first half of the season. Thank you all so much for watching. 2,000 likes on the video. Subscribe if you are new around here as well. Hopefully I see as many of you as possible in that deadline stream on Saturday morning. If not, drop any questions you have on this video as well, and I'll do my best to answer all of them as soon as I can before the deadline. Thank you all for watching. Like and subscribe before you go, and I'll be back again very soon.